I want to welcome everybody to another episode of the Shadows Podcast. I'm your host, Trip Bodenheimer, and it's been a busy day of recording, but I'm excited, very stoked. I've been listening to him on some podcast episodes as well. I have a very special guest with us today, Allen Levi Simmons. He is a motivational speaker and coach. He is a veteran from the United States Marine Corps. He's a host of the Purpose Pod. He's the author of Can I Speak? Never Stop, Never Quit, Repeat. Whew, what a resume right there. Welcome to the Shadows.
Thanks, Trip. I appreciate it. Yeah, I like when people do it because it's like, man, this guy's doing a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah. It's better when someone introduces me and they're like, he's from the Shadows.
He's from the Shadows.
It sounds better when you have author and all that other stuff thrown in front of it. But yeah, welcome.
Thanks, Trip. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that Scott hooked us up and connected us. I love divine connections, so I feel like this is a divine connection right here.
Iron sharpens iron.
That's right.
Definitely. Well, let our listeners know where are you located at.
What's up, world? All my shadow followers. This is your boy, Mr. Never Stop, Never Quit, Repeat himself, Allen Levi Simmons. I am currently in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am from Summerville, a town next to Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah. I did say Raleigh, North Carolina, right? I didn't say Raleigh. So okay, cool. Yes. He said Raleigh, South Carolina.
Let me ask you though, Raleigh, are you who's your college team you pull for?
Oh man, see, like a long time ago I was with Duke. And then as I grew, as I grew older, I just lost interest in everything. Like I played sports my whole life, and it got to the point where I was just like a nomad. I was just out there and I didn't belong to anything. Like, I love sports though. I love sports. So
you're in the research triangle. So if you go to Piggly Wiggly, you a Wolf Pack, or you a Tar Heel, or you still a Dookie?
I mean, I would go with Tar Heel. Still a Dookie.
we'll keep recording. So I'm a big Tar Heel fan.
Okay.
So when you were like,
I'll be one today.
Yeah, my internet almost lost connection
there. Oh man, come on.
Yeah. But no, that's good. We're off to a really good start here.
Yeah.
So now that fact you said you like Duke, that changes all the 5 rounds questions that we're about to go through. We're going to go through our 5 rounds questions presented by sponsor Giant Worldwide. Head over to giant.tv/shadows. Check out all the amazing stuff they have to offer. First question for you. What do you do to recharge?
I sit in my car and sometimes I don't go anywhere. And I just think, I really, I sit in a car or I drive. I love to drive and think. Maybe a dangerous thing, but I usually love to drive and think as well.
See, we're getting back on the same page. I just said this on a podcast yesterday that I like to drive and no music on.
Yeah, exactly.
And to me, a long car ride by myself, to some people they dread it. To me, I'm like, oh, that is. Yeah. I'm going to be clear-headed when I'm done with that car ride.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's the best way to be present-minded.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Superhero. Favorite superhero?
I laugh because I thought about my dad. We used to watch this movie back in the 90s, 97 or something like that. It was a Blank Man. He's not even like a legit like Spider-Man. Yeah. It was like a comedy. It was like this old black show. Like it was a comedy. And I can't remember the guy's name right now, but it was a funny comedy. Blank Man. You gotta Google it. Just Google Blank Man.
It's like I'm doing in the Google machine right now.
What's his name? Robert. When your mind go blank.
Oh, Damon Wayans.
Was it Damon Williams? Yeah. It was Damon Williams and his brother. Yeah.
That was like fresh off of In Living Color and everything, I think.
No, it was right around 90. It was 94. Yeah, Blank Man, Damon Wayans. Yeah. That was it. So that back, my dad used to say like that was my favorite, superhero back in the day. It was more so comedy, but I never really saw African American guy portraying like a superhero from where I was. So that was the first time I saw somebody dressing up trying to be a superhero. But it was comedic very funny.
12% Rotten Tomato.
Right. It probably wasn't the best. That's something that, like when you have those things that, make your childhood, and it may be weird, and people probably like Home Alone or something. Like, people probably don't really like Home Alone, but Home Alone reminds me of being home and watching that as a kid, so
it.
yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
That's my daughter and I's go-to movie for Christmas.
Yeah,
Home
yeah.
Alone 1 and 2. Are you a Home Alone 1 or Home Alone 2 guy?
I think I'm a Home Alone 1 guy. I like the Home Alone 1. I'm very, I mean, because it's like that's your first love. The next ones, they do more. They try to be more funny, and like it kind of loses.
Pigeon Lady comes in there.
Yeah.
At what point are his parents considered irresponsible?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they should have had Home Alone parents go to jail or something like that.
So they have like a new one on Disney Plus or something. All right, what is a guilty pleasure you have?
I smoke hookah. I know your last guest that we were talking about earlier, she talked about vaping. And
Andrews, yeah.
Yeah. So I like hookah. That's my thing.
Okay. This is a really deep question. You have this is a popular one, dinner for three, but there are historical people who are no longer with us. Cannot be family members, just historical figures.
Okay.
Who would you dine with?
Well, I got to go with Michael Jackson. That's my guy. He got me into dancing. So Michael Jackson, and then I would have to go with Martin Luther King Jr., of course, just because of being a motivational speaker, being someone who wants to capture the minds of millions and lead a movement of purpose. That's what I want to do. So and
no
then
positional power, just simply off of his word.
Yeah, just off of his word. Yeah. And then my last one, man, you don't want to say somebody that's not dead. Oh, but my last one, I would say, I would want to for dinner, Robin Williams. I actually met Robin Williams in Afghanistan. Him and Lance Armstrong came over there, took pictures, but I didn't get to talk to him.
Yeah.
So I think, watching Mrs. Doubtfire and all that stuff when I was little as well, that would be someone I would want at the table, at his most authentic, original self. Just because I know he would just spice things up, so yeah.
You ever seen a video clip of him at a deployed location, and I think Reveille went off and everybody stood up and started salute? Have you ever seen that?
I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, he's in the middle of doing his act, and just all the troops.
I thought you were talking about like overseas, like he was actually visiting soldiers overseas. Okay, yeah. You're talking about the movie. You're talking about
no. He was legit like on a.
Okay.
He was like on a USO tour or something. And
oh no, I didn't see that.
He was over there doing his spiel on stage, and the anthem goes off, and all of a sudden everybody turns around and salutes the flag. And he had no idea what's happening, and then they sat down, and he's like, that's the first time I've had an entire audience turn their back on me. But no, I would like to talk to him too, just to get inside his head to see what he was really going through.
Yeah, it's true. Because I feel like if I was the person that I am today, I would have made a better shot at like connecting with him, and even just getting a 5-minute conversation like, hey, how are you doing? Like, what, I didn't get to ask him that. Like, how are you doing? And he looked really down. He was glad to be there, but he wasn't the guy I thought I was going to meet. Like, I could tell his contents, his spirit was down.
Yeah.
And I got pictures with him, and you can see like he's just there, but he's not there.
So right, jet lagged, fatigued, and everything.
Probably.
Yeah. And next, or a final question for you, and then you have survived the 5 rounds.
Yes.
Other than your book, because we're gonna get to that one. What book recommendation? Actually, what resource recommendation do you have for our listeners out there?
So book or just resource or
podcast, article, news site, book?
That's a good one. I would say, Scott DeLuzio, we could talk about Drive On podcast. I could plug him in right there, just because of this connection, definitely. And because it's a great podcast. I was a guest on there, so it was definitely worth listening to.
He's just so easy to talk to.
Yeah. He's down to earth. He's a cool dude.
Yep. Scott's a good guy. So yeah, go check him out. Drive On Podcast. I'm a huge listener of that one. All right, now you have survived that. Now we're going to jump into your story. Talk to us about your upbringings in Summerville, South Carolina. What was young Allen Simmons like?
Little Allie, let me tell you, dog. Nah, but man, as a young kid, I was just bubbly personality, dude. I loved girls. Like at a young age, I grew up fast, I guess. But actually, I'll say like I love girls, but it was because of an issue I had growing up, which was I grew up without my mom after the age of like 4 or 3, one of those ages right there.
Yeah.
My parents split at an early age in my life. So I grew up wanting to have relationships with girls and stuff. And as when I turned 30, I finally understood why I was like that. And it was because I was lacking that void of
searching for it.
Yeah, I was searching for that. Like that. So I always wanted somebody to love me more than I could love them. And that's a motherly love right there. Like somebody who can love you more than you could ever love them.
Yeah.
So fast forward, anyway, I grew up with my dad and my grandmother and my grandfather and my cousins, right? You meet anybody from the South, they're gonna be like, yeah, I grew up with my cousins, right?
Everybody's
like it was,
a cousin.
yeah, everybody up the street, you guys. But literally my grandma had 13 kids, living kids. So like I have a big family. I have a lot of cousins. So we grew up in my grandmother's house, just doing bad kid stuff. I was like, if you look at who I am right now and who I was as a kid, you'd be like, okay, I can kind of see. But okay, he was a kid who stole before. He was a kid who lied all the time. He was a kid who wrecked his grandmother's van.
Just had to tweak your morals and values a
Yeah,
little bit.
just a
Personality was there.
Yeah, but the things that if they would have caught me at that age, they would have said this guy's a delinquent. He's cutting up in class. I was getting kicked out of school. Just my behavior. I was always trying to be the funny guy, moonwalking on the desk. My boy Ricky could tell you guys like Allen moonwalked on the art table in art school, or in art class, in elementary school. But so I was when I say bad, I wasn't like disrespecting people. I was just always getting in trouble with the teachers because I'm talking or doing something. So outside of that, me being a bad boy, I'm a good boy. I was a good guy. I connected with everyone. I was connecting with the intellects. I was connecting with the street people, white people, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people. I was that guy that had a diverse group of friends at an early age. Redneck friends. I was dating redneck girls. Like parents was pulling their kids out of school because of me. You're not gonna date that black guy. So it was. I'll tell it the truth. It was like that. It was like that. Middle school that happened to me. The girl I was dating in middle school, her parents pulled her out of school because they found out I was black.
What year was
that? This middle school that had to been was that after or not after 9/11?
So it was like early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s.
To add some context, that's like 20. That's a different time.
Yeah, it was a different time, bro. So so those are like, that's a dabble of like what it was like, growing up. But overall, as a kid, at the age of 10 or 11, I watched my friend get hit by a car, as we were crossing the main street, and he was only 10 or 11 as well. So I actually watched this young man die in front of my eyes. So that was something, I've seen some traumatic things in my life as a kid, but life was good, I suppose. Prom king, prom prince, track, football, wrestling. I did basketball, so all around guy.
Looking back, you talked about the lack of connection that you had. Where was your mom after the divorce? Where did she end up going to?
Up the street.
Oh, really?
It's crazy. Yeah, honest to God. Like, she moved to New York. They weren't married. They were just together, living together with, my sister and I. And, my mom, I remember, like, I was like 4 years old, but I remember the day they left, because my mom was like, do you want to come with me or your daddy? And I was a little kid, a child. And I'm like, daddy, I want to stay with daddy, So I stayed with my dad, and my mom and my sisters left to New York, and my sister ended up coming back. My mom ended up coming back to South Carolina, and she moved around the corner for my grandmother. I would go there from time to time,
Yeah.
but she was always dating these alcoholic dudes and like these bum guys, like, and I hated it as a kid. And I told her that recently, because we haven't seen each other in over 20 years, but I just started talking to her on the phone these past 3 years, I believe.
Nice.
So yeah, so I haven't seen her yet, even though we've been having communications. I've been home. She's always giving me the runaround. I'll see you, like it's like I'm chasing after her, but um, so she's here. Like I talk to her, I don't resent her.
Yeah.
I've as a person, I've had to figure out how I could understand my parents and their story and their journey. So I had to figure out my parents had their own thing going on. And this last thing I'll say is my mom wrote me a letter. I asked her to write me a letter. I was like, can you write me a letter about your life? And she did. And however chopped up it was, because my mom in her letter told me I got pulled out of school at a young age, like elementary school, never completed school, because her mom, forced her out of school. And her mom, my grandmother was, rest in peace, but she was on the move a lot. So my mom had to raise herself. So like, then you start seeing like, okay, so that was the child mother. Now let's get to where she's this person who's about to have this child named Allen. And what emotional state is she in? Like, so when you look at that, then you can see, okay, well, my parents split and it's bigger than me, it's not my fault, so anyway.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully y'all get to connect. Hopefully y'all get
Yeah.
that face-to-face with each other.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that. You also mentioned, unfortunately, hate to hear that about your friend passing away.
Yeah.
How do you think those two instances specifically, you're here on the Shadows, how do you think they help mold you into the young adult you were evolving into?
Man, I was a reckless guy. When you see death as a young dude, you realize like death doesn't have it's not a specific on who is going to take that day. You could be 10, you could be 12, you could be 3, you could be 4. So I was like, man, I might as well YOLO, right? Like might as well live it up. I don't think YOLO was in when I was YOLOing, but and then with my relationships, like I said, I was wanting women to love me more than I could love them. So I was in and out of relationships because I'm breaking hearts and stuff. And I thought it was cool because of culture, but society doesn't acknowledge your voids, and so I'm a man roaming around with voids, seeing death and with my mom, and it's causing me to be a person who I'm a good person, but made bad choices, so.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of your aspirations growing up? Like, what did you want to be?
That's a good question. Everybody sees where I'm at now, and it's almost like, oh, it's probably what he wanted to do his whole life. I did not know who I wanted to be when I grew up. I literally was living like I kind of keep this, like how you have the video games, the Nintendo over there. Like I keep this youthfulness that I remember when I was a child of Allen who could do anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I was playing football, wrestling, track, doing hurdles. I was all over the place. And I realized that I could do whatever I learned. So when you look at my life now, I feel like it did prepare me as a kid to not have a vision of, oh, I want to do X, Y, Z, because who are we to say I'll be doing that when I get older? A lot of people got into the field and left their field, their dream field, to go do what they were purposed to do. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think my youthfulness is still a part of who I am. And that is why I do everything. Like I do software support. I work at IBM. I'm all these things on the outside, but I am still at the core that boy, Allen Simmons from Somerville.
And everything that I mentioned at the top of this about what you're doing now, and then you were talking about, like your origin story, your beginnings.
Yeah.
Looking back at where you were growing up and where you are now, what would you tell like that 10-year-old version of you?
Man, that's a good question, because that little boy right there was hurt. I would tell him to pay attention to your pain, to pay attention to your pain. because I decided to pretend that I was not in pain. I just continued to live, didn't even think about how those things were affecting my life. I just thought this is who I am, right?
Mhm.
After we go through something, we say, oh, this is who I am versus, oh, that thing made me a certain way. So I would tell him to acknowledge your pain, to ask your parents for a therapist, and to continue to be a joyful person. And yeah.
I'm glad you said that piece, because there's so many parents that it's the stigma of my kid had to talk to it. That kids don't know how to express themselves properly
Right.
and don't know these emotions that are going on in their mind and their body. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very undervalued, is
Yeah.
having kids actually talk to a trained professional.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. You mentioned, in you speaking of Scott DeLuzio, you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
on his that you had family who was previous military.
Mm-hmm.
Not just
Yeah.
what drove you into the military, but what made you go the route of Marines.
Oh yeah, that story. So, I did. My grandfather, he was a World War One. My uncle, he's a Marine veteran. My dad's an Army veteran, and but none of those were driving me to be patriotic for the red, white, and blue. Um, I was planning to go to school for elementary education, and I'm this young high school dude, and I am having sex, and I'm wearing protection, but the protection pops, and so there was a situation where I was like, oh, don't know what could come out of this.
Oh,
And come to find out that this young lady comes back to me and tells me that she's pregnant. And so me knowing what happened when we were intimate, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna, like, what are we gonna do? And it's crazy that right now in these days and times they're having these conversations about abortion. And I was sitting there, I told my wife, I was like, we were sitting there and we were like, we're high school kids about to graduate. I was about to graduate, and I was like, well, I think we should get an abortion. Like, that was the first thing I thought of, because I'm like, okay, and I'm not going to get into politics or anything,
yeah.
but I'm telling you from my side, my story, we wanted to do that. And I was so careless. And I'm glad her sister stepped in for that child,
Yep.
because her sister showed us pictures. She was like, look at this. This is what you guys are doing. Because when you're young, you think, oh, we're just getting an abortion. And it's like, oh, we'll get, as the guy,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, we'll just get rid of it, and get it out the way.
Yep.
And that thing does not exist to me, but for the woman, it's inside of her, and it's real to her because it's inside of her, right? So she was considering it. She was just like, but now we're thinking about our life. And that's what happens with 90% of abortion is done because people are considering their life. They're thinking about what they want out of their life versus, just, okay, let's do this.
But they can give to someone else.
Yeah, or they could give to somebody else, so, but they don't want to do that. So our situation, we ended up saying, okay, no abortion, we'll go through with it. My buddies came up to me and they were like, yo, we're going to the Marine Corps. I was like, that's crazy, and I'm thinking about it. I was like, it's like, we got a buddy program. You can come with us to boot camp. We could all be in the same platoon. It's all good. Program. Yeah, so I was like, man. So we went and told my parents about the pregnancy. My dad was like, what the heck, you're gonna do, in better words. And I was like, I'll go to the Marines. And I signed up. I find out in boot camp that the kid isn't mine, that somebody else is the father, so I'm like, in boot camp. Yeah, I'm so mad, bro. I was so mad, Trip. Like, I was so angry, but my dad was like, yo, you got to stay in. You got to stay. You just got to finish it. I wanted to leave. I was like, because I was hating boot camp. I was getting like punished because I didn't know anything about military. I didn't know anything about like formations, all this stuff I'm learning. Like, I wasn't in RTC, never had any interest in the military. And I got these guys yelling at me. I got these guys touching me, and I want to punch them in the face.
Right in your face.
Right in your face, bro. So I'm looking at the drill instructor. Well, you want to hit me? Hit me. And I'm just like, oh. But yeah, anyway, so that's how I got to the Marine Corps, was because, I was trying to step up as a man to be a child's father, but ended up not being that child's father. So
Well, it worked itself out as part of your story and
Yeah.
where you are. And yeah, boot camp. Talk to us about like, because so Air Force boot camp was, or basic training.
Yeah.
When I went through 2009,
Mm-hmm.
they were in our face yelling at us,
Mm-hmm.
but it was not anywhere I can imagine like Marine Corps training. What was some,
Oh my
some people look back
God.
at
It's like
basic training
torture.
or boot camp and they laugh at certain things. What's that one moment that stands out to you? You're like, geez,
I
this.
got one. I got a good one. So um so there, you get squad leaders, and stuff like that in boot camp, and people get leadership roles. So at night, whenever we do lights out, when the drill instructors go into their room, we're supposed to be in our racks and at attention, in our racks, laying down at attention until the fire watch says we can get up, until you can start making head calls, going to the bathroom, right? So the lights, they hit the lights, lights are out. We're out here. What did we used to do? We used to do the Marine Corps Creed or something. I forgot what we used to do before we go to
Sounds
sleep
about
or
right.
whatever, right? Yeah, we're at attention doing that. And then so it gets quiet, and then you hear like psst, 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 psst. You hear guys like whispering or something, like you hear, don't do that. And like you're like, so now you're like, what's going on? And all I know was you hear like a big poof, like somebody punches somebody, like you hit somebody in the right, and like some people start fighting. Drill instructor comes out, what is going on? What is going on? And yelling, the lights come back on, everybody's getting up looking. And we've come to find out this guy had to take a dump, right? And he had to take a dump. He was holding it. He was holding it so bad, so long that like when the lights cut off, he couldn't wait until they told us we could get up to make head calls. So he got up anyways. And the fire watch guy told the platoon leader or the squad leader, and the squad leader went in the bathroom or went in the head and started arguing with him. Like, we didn't have doors when you're taking a dump. We didn't have any doors. You're just out there taking a dump in front of the world. And he punches him in the face while he's on the toilet. That's the craziest thing I ever heard.
Rough
I
night.
didn't want to see it, but I heard about it. I was like, that's crazy. I couldn't imagine getting punched while I'm on the toilet.
Yeah. And after all that had happened.
Right. It's like when my wife knocks on the door and I'm in the bathroom. I'm like, come on, leave me alone, man. Let me get my peace.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Crazy thing.
Next, this is a big part of your story. Talk to us about the RPG blast that happened on your deployment and the after effects of that as well.
Okay, so I went to Afghanistan in 2010 with EOD, first EOD company out of Camp Pendleton, and I went there as a volunteer with EOD, the Explosive Ordnance Disposal company, and I was a support personnel. Right? Doing admin stuff, crunching papers for them, being told what to do, all that good stuff. But then I was an electrician, so they really liked that because we had a generator, needed to be kept up, so we had a tent and stuff like that in Afghanistan, and we were on a small fob in Marja. And one day, so in Afghanistan, I'm running the IED lane, and that's how I met Robin Williams and Lance Armstrong. Is because I had to take them through this course, to help show people like what it's like in the terrain and how to find IEDs, right? Using, our metal detectors and how to move about in formation and all that stuff. So I was doing that. I was in a tower blowing up stuff, making the deck cord blow up and stuff. Whenever somebody would get next to an IED in our training lane. So one day they come up to me like, hey, Simmons, do you want to go on a patrol with us? And I was like, oh man, I'll go on a patrol. That's cool. That sounds good. And they was all right, we're leaving tomorrow morning. I was like, okay. So, I wake up in the morning, like, Simmons, you ready? I was like, yeah. So I'm, get my stuff. I'm ready. We're about to go on a presence patrol, and tell the locals like, hey, we're just here up the street. If you ever need anything. Right. So, we, before we leave the fob, the captain, he's going over the formation and like how we're going to be maneuvering and where we're going and all that stuff, right? And He goes, Simmons, you're going to be point on the right. And I was like, these infantry guys and stuff. I'm like the electrician, every Marine is a rifleman, but dude, this is y'all's job. Come on. I'm just here as a tour person. But they're like, Simmons, we want you point. And I'm like, so you're gonna put the black guy up front? The black guy dies first. I said that to Captain, and everybody starts laughing. I'm like, I'm serious, and they still put me up front. So and it was so funny that I said that day. And what happens following this is, we walk, we get passed by these guys on our moped, and they're all inshallah, telling us hello and stuff like that. And next thing you know, we're walking down a rat trail. It's like a little trail in the desert between some fields and stuff like that, some trees and stuff. And we're walking down there, and I'm point on the right side, and I'm looking down, looking at the terrain, trying to make sure I don't see any disturbed earth and all this stuff. And this kid comes out, he's la, 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 la. And the interpreter was like, he said the Taliban told everybody to go in the house, and they put an IED in the road. And so the kid made us aware that the Taliban had just came by to put an IED in the road, and they told people to leave, to go in their houses. So here I am now, definitely shaking in my boots, and I'm walking. I'm just like trying to be careful, walking. And my sergeant, he was in the middle of the V4. We were in a V formation. I was at the point on the top right. Sergeant was in the middle, in the on the road, on the dirt road, with the metal detector scanning. And we had a Thor pack. It's a radio jammer that jams radio signals and stuff. Somebody had that on them in the middle of the formation. So I get to this intersection, and it's like, I'm looking through my scope, trying to see if I see anything in the distance. And I hear this voice tell me, like in my spirit, like whatever, tells me to look by my foot, so I look by my foot, and there's this haystack. And I'm like, the voice says, lift up the haystack. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not tripping. This voice was speaking to me that day, like, lift up the haystack. And the pause, I always battle with now, because I'm a Christian guy, but then I've had times of reflection, and I'm thinking like, okay, was it God? Was God speaking to me? Or was it my training and my conscience? Was it, like, I don't know, but I say God was speaking to me. My spirit was speaking to me. And I lift up the haystack, and there's this propane tank, right? And there's a propane tank on the side of the road under a haystack, 12 9-volt batteries, a cell phone strapped on it, some wires, coming from the cell phone to the batteries, all connected. And I'm looking at it like, oh my God, IED, like by my foot. I'm yelling it out. I don't move, I don't run, because I don't want to set off any secondary, tertiary devices. And so I can't remember who, somebody came and put the Thor pack, the radio jammer, by me, by the IED, and we did a 360 around there, right? So fast forward, I'm shook, don't want to do anything else, ready to go back to my tent, and we still got to move forward with the mission. So we go clear out this house. Myself and another Marine, we clear out this house, and this man and his kids are in there playing in some clay. We go outside. We tell them to stay inside. We go outside. There's a compound over to our left, and there's this big, imagine a football field, right? And you got 100, you got your 100 yards, right? And then you got off to the left, you could see like these two compounds where these clay houses are, and there's kids running back and forth, and they're running between their compounds. And then off to my right, there's this street that we were on, and then all the way down there is a tree line, a line of trees, like a wooded area, right? So 100 yards away, just about. I don't know if it was like that. So this guy's running in my peripheral. I see him. He's like blue vest, something in his hand, and he's booking it. He's running, and like I see him running, and I'm like, hey, I told the guy, I was like, hey, I see, over there, and I'm tracking him with my rifle and stuff like that. But we're calling in to command, possible Taliban, can we engage? It's like, what does he look like? We telling him what the descriptions are. Does he have a weapon? We don't know. Like, he's running, like he got a vest on, he got a device in his hand. Can we engage? And they're like, don't engage. Rules of engagement, right? So what happens next is AKs, freaking mortars, like just all hell breaks loose, right? And shots,
Yeah.
boo, right? You hear all of that stuff, and I'm just like, oh my god, like all in a minute, I'm just in a movie right now,
Yeah.
and I'm hitting the ground, and I see bullets, bro. Trip, I see bullets hitting the earth right next to me, and I can see the dirt flying up, bro.
What's
So
your
I'm just,
mindset?
huh?
What's your mindset during all this?
Bro, I literally like brain turned off, like
Yeah.
on go mode, like
Fight or
I'm
flight.
fight or flight, right? I'm just like, I actually had flipped my weapon on burst, my rifle on burst, right? I'm on 3-round burst. Da-da-da, da-da-da. He was like, I was gonna say his name, but my fellow Marine, he was like, turn your rifle off a burst and put it back on single shot. You know, you're
Your
wasting rounds and you
electrician.
might jam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went, I tell you, Trip, I ain't gonna lie. I panicked. I just started laying rounds down. And so he's like, we gotta bound back with the rest of the platoon. And I'm like, dude, there's bullets flying around. He's like, Simmons, we got to move. And, you know, he's infantry. So I'm just like, all right, bet I'm going to move. Like, so, you know, we get up, I'm up, you see me, I'm down, I'm running, you know, and I'm up and I'm down. I'm, you know, like, so, you know what, I'm up, you see me, I'm down. We say that whenever we're like, you're running and then you hit the floor so that you can kind of reduce your silhouette so that they won't, you know, shoot you in a sense. So you're zigzagging and doing all that stuff. Next thing you know, RPG blast, like, I'll say like 7 feet, 10 feet in front of me, like just, boom. I just remember the boom and like the blast pushed me back and I'm in the air, hit my back on the ground and my ears are ringing. I say in my poem, my ears are ringing like a smoke detector. My heartbeat singing loudly, slowly fading into a whisper. I'm trying to paint this picture. Like I literally was in a place where I could hear my heartbeat slow down, like in the movies. And then my ears were like,
Just like you
just
see
ringing.
me.
Yeah, just like the movies, right? So I fade, the noise just goes quiet, silent. I ain't hear nothing after that, right? I'm just like, I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
I remember laying in Afghanistan, but my mind was somewhere else. You know, like I'm thinking about my parents, I'm thinking about my nephew at the time, and I'm like, nobody knows I'm about to die. Those were the words that went through my mind at that last point, you know. So I come to from one of my sergeant, he's on top of me, shaking the crap out of me. Simmons, get up, get up, get up. I get up. I'm grabbing my legs. I'm grabbing, you know, trying to make sure I still got my legs, you know, grabbing my body, bro. And you know, they bring me to the side. I'm like, give me a cigarette, give me a cigarette. You know, I light up a cigarette. I'm just sitting there with the guy who owns the little house that we were at. I gave him a cigarette. We got a cigarette. We smoking there. I'm just like, oh my God, this is crazy. So yeah. After that, it was just a lot of anxiety, forgetfulness, like forgetting things, being absent-minded a lot, paranoia, you know, setting up my apartment because I thought someone was trying to kill me, addiction to pot, you know, just alcohol, suicidal, you know, so I'll pause right there and let you continue questioning.
No, I appreciate you opening up and sharing that story. That is, I mean, I couldn't imagine personally.
Yeah.
And first of all, I don't even think I've said it on here. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you've done. And you know, you talked about in previous interviews I've heard the traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
When did that come about? When did you notice?
Yeah, because I never even knew anything about it. Well, I knew the doc told me when I got back that night after that whole encounter with the Taliban. He was like, they were like, hey, don't go to sleep, you know, stay up for a little bit, you know. I was like, oh, yeah, you know, stay up. The next day, I'm talking to my chief warrant officer and I'm sitting down talking to him like we're talking now, and I pass out just right. And I open my eyes and I start talking just like I did just now. And he's looking at me like,
it's not normal.
Are you okay? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they took a picture of me when I was passed out, bro. Trip. Imagine like you just talking to me and you pass out and I take a picture. And you're like, when was this? And I was like, just now. You're like, no, it wasn't. Scary. So like that, scary. Yeah, that happened. I'm forgetting my rifle. I'm forgetting my cover. And like, it wasn't really hitting me yet until I got out the Marine Corps. I was getting out right when I got back to stateside. I extended to stay in the military so I could go overseas. My re-enlistment package took too long from the career planner and he screwed me over and I couldn't re-enlist as an electrician. So I got out and I started noticing that I felt very paranoid and that I was struggling with my memory, like forgetting stuff, forgetting people's names, forgetting, like, it's terrible. And having these nightmares and stuff. So that's when I went to the VA and understood what was happening to me.
Yeah.
So
What advice would you have for anyone out there who thinks they may be suffering from a traumatic brain injury, from post-traumatic stress disorder, having suicidal tendencies? Because we do have a lot of veterans out there who've been through
yeah,
things.
yeah.
What advice do you have for them?
I mean, even for non-veterans, because PTSD
Car wrecks.
is, it comes, yeah, car wrecks. Like when I was a little boy, that was PTSD right there. So uh for those people that are going through that, the first thing you have to do is recognize where you are. You can't go anywhere until you recognize where you are. So I would love to say, recognize your location. Where are you? How are you feeling? The state of mind you're in. Do you feel suicidal? Are you making up plans? Are you thinking about wrecking your car into a guardrail, or things that I was thinking? I'm driving, like, I want to wreck my car. I want to do this. I want to do that. You start making plans, then you need to call someone. So recognize and then call for help. It may not seem dire right then and there, but it's a buildup. It's a process. You start looking for ways to die. And that's when you need to get help. So, and then the last point I'll say is to accept who you are. A lot of people try to change because they don't like who they are, but you have to accept who you are, because this is just who you are based on what you've been through. And it doesn't mean that you will always be this way, but you have an opportunity to embrace the person you are and love that person despite your trauma and your pain. And then out of that love you've given yourself, you will allow yourself to the time and the opportunity to heal.
What a good message. I mean, and what a inspiration you are to be sitting here for someone else who could be going through something similar. I've
Yeah.
had people talk to me within the past 6 years of me teaching who've come to me, and one person is that really comes to mind sat with me for like 4 hours and was just talking to me and was tearing
Yeah.
up about stuff.
Yeah.
And come to find out, that person was struggling with PTSD.
Mm.
And you'll be surprised, even if you're on the opposite end of somebody that's going through something like that, just listen to them. Don't try to fix it for them right then and there. Sometimes they just need to be heard.
That's
And
good.
understand what resources are out there too. And we'll have some of those links in this episode description
Yeah.
as well.
That's good. I wanted to say, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, when you said, like, to just listen to them, I think that's a very good advice, because a lot of times if Trip comes to me, he's like, Allen, man, I feel suicidal. I'm depressed right now. And I'm like, no, Trip, you can't. Life is great. Life is great. You
Why
gotta
do you feel that
recognize,
way?
like, why do you feel this way? That's not good. No, like, you sit there and you just let them talk. You let them talk, and then you help them journey through what they're going through, because at that point, I didn't know why I was the way I was. I didn't know why I felt like killing myself. I didn't know why I'm over here with this gun in my hand, the pills on my bed, the Bible on my nightstand, paranoia tiptoeing through the hallway of my home, gun in my mouth, finger on the trigger. Like, I'm literally been the person who thought that could never be me, to the person, who was with the gun in their hand and the gun in their mouth, and saying there's nobody to stop me right now. So, recognize where you are, but also, if you're the person on the other end, have some empathy and compassion and love, and through that, you'll gain understanding. You may not understand what it's like to feel suicidal, but if you have empathy, compassion, and you use your wisdom to talk to the person, you will then be able to guide them on, hey, maybe they don't need help. Maybe they just need a friend to just pour out into for a little bit,
Yeah.
and then to move forward. So
Stay with them.
Stay with
them.
Buddy program.
Yeah, exactly. But
Battle
no,
buddies.
I can't thank you enough for sharing that part of your journey. And now let's talk about the amazing things you're doing since you have gotten out of the Marines. First, Persist Motivational Clothing Company. Talk to us about that. I told you at the top of this, I like that shirt. That shirt is amazing.
Yeah, that's that new never stop, never quit, repeat. But So I started Persist Motivational Clothing, all because I had this mantra when I was in college at UNC Charlotte, for the seventh time going back to college.
49ers.
After 49ers, yeah, 49ers, we out here. But so I'm at UNC Charlotte because I went to Old Dominion University when I was in Virginia. I went to Thomas Nelson Community College. I went to the University of Phoenix online. I went to Central Texas College. Like, I was going to all of these things, looking for purpose, looking for what I was supposed to be out here doing. And I gave up on myself. I dropped out of college and I meet my wife. And this is what, 2016. So we're newly married. And I'm like, man, I feel like a failure. Like, I went in the military, but that can't just be my story. Like, what is my story? And I was like, all the people I went to school with are already graduated already. I could have been done. My wife was like, you still got your GI Bill? I was like, I got a little bit left. She's like, well, go back to college. And I was like, okay. So I went back to college for engineering, and that was the best decision of my life. So while I was in school, I was back on academic probation because my GPA dropped to a 2.0, right?
Yep, been there.
Right. So I'm on academic probation. They have this rebound program. I call her my friend Mandy. She was over that program, and it showed me how to study and how to seek help in the resources at school. And I was like, man, I'm lacking the ability to study. And that is why I'm failing, right? Because I think that I could just open the book and like look at it and, oh, that's it. But with calculus and differential equations, you got to actually practice that stuff. Yeah. Right. So I'm seeing that. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like, even on academic probation, I was like, I can graduate school close to a 3.0. I got to be able to get close to it. I ended up finishing with a 2.75 from a 2.0. So that was pretty good. Hey. I was proud of myself. Right. But the mantra, never stop, never quit, repeat, came to me when I was walking on campus, and I was like, I'm done giving up. I never want to ask myself, what if? I don't want to ask myself. I don't care what it is. If I think about doing it, I'm going to start it. And if I don't like it, I'm going to quit at that point, because that's not what I want to do. But if I love it, I'm going to never stop, never quit, repeat, and I'm going to repeat it until I see the finished product, so that's where Persist Motivational Clothing came from.
And then talk to us about I see the banner behind you. You got
the Purpose Pod.
The Purpose
Pod. We got the Purpose Pod. We got, so I'll tie into this next, my book. But so the Purpose Pod, I started the Purpose Pod March 2020. After being someone who got on Facebook, I was rarely on Instagram or YouTube. I was on Facebook, and I would do Facebook lives, and I would like talk to people, talk my heart out, just talk about suicide, talk about life, talk about love, talk about family and purpose. And people were like, man, you should like do something. And I was like, man, nobody wants to listen to me. I don't know all that stuff. And COVID came, the pandemic came.
So it was right at COVID.
Yeah, this is right at COVID. March 2020, I started the Purpose Pod. I said, I'm going to interview 30 people in 30 days. And if I'm burned out by then, that was a dumb equation, but I was like, if I'm burned out by then, I won't do it anymore. And this is 2022, right? So I did 30 interviews in 30 days, 30 professionals in 30 days. I had an hour interview with each person. Yeah. And I loved it. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to back up some. So I'll do every Tuesday for a second season. And I was like, okay, I'll still love it. I'm going to go the second and fourth Tuesday of the month now, because my schedules keeps changing. Right. So I'll do that. So I'm in the third season right now, and I feel like I'm going up from here, so it's been a blessing to be on the Purpose Pod.
Where can people find it?
So I'm on YouTube right now, and I actually got to talk to Tripp about how he gets on all these other platforms. I love the way your website, everything you have for your podcast. I love how you have it set up. Just want to plug that in there. Just say, but I'm on YouTube right now. So the Purpose Pod on YouTube and Instagram.
You help me with YouTube, because that's what I'm
okay.
And I'll help you with the podcast platforms.
Okay, cool. We can do that then.
We're trading off shirts.
Trade off. Come on now, we got a bartering system.
We are. It's like the Oregon Trail or something.
Yeah.
Now talk to us about that book you got in front of you.
Okay, so this book, I don't know if you'll have video up later, but this is the Purpose Pod. I mean, that's the Purpose Pod. This is the Can I Speak book right here. It's a book. That
cover too.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just like, a picture with poetry on tape over my mouth, because for the longest, with that PTSD, I kept it inside, and I was always joyful. Like you would never had known that you could probably, if you were really close to me, like some people were, they were like, Allen, this isn't you. But I was having a fun time. I'm having a blast, turning up, doing all this fun stuff, suffering on the inside. The real people that were close to me were like, Allen, this isn't you. Right. So, my book, Can I Speak, was an opportunity for me to release what was inside of me. And it wasn't just the military. It was my life. It was things I saw as a kid, things I'm witnessing as a human being. I put it in the book, and I was like, I'm going to talk about art. I'm going to talk about being a human. I'm going to talk about having chains around you, like just everything and anything. But my goal with this book is to help people see from the life of other people, so you can read a story about a motherless child, a dude who's locked up, or just regular poetry. So,
and where can I get a copy of that?
It's on Amazon. You can type in canispeakbook.com. It'll take you right there, on Amazon.
And actually, by the time this episode is released, folks, if you go to our book recommendations on the website and click on this episode, it'll take you directly to that link. So you'll be able to access a copy of that. And if our listeners want to find out more information about you, where can they go to?
You can go to Allen, Allen, Levi, Levi Simmons, Simmons.com, AllenLeviSimmons.com. And you can be connected to me through everything from there.
I was like, you got a sharp looking website. I was over there earlier. I
appreciate it, bro. Like I literally took my time so like I said, when you do something, just put your mind to it and repeat that process until you finish it. I was like, I didn't have the money to pay anybody. So I was like, I'm going to build my own website from GoDaddy, right? They give you a template. And now I'm just based off of how I envision the person that I am. So I'm like, okay, every time I change that website. But yeah, so that I did that whole thing, bro. The whole thing. Just like, your website is very smooth, clean, cloth. Creative. Yeah.
All right. Final question for you here. I love to ask this question to wrap things up.
Yeah.
50 years from now, when people mention you, what do you want them to say about you?
He's a butthole. I'm just playing.
That's our episode.
No, I'm just playing. No, but 50 years from now, man, I'll be about like 80 something. And I want people to say that guy is an inspiration. Allen is an inspiration because I'll probably still be alive, hopefully. So Allen is an inspiration. He is persistent and resilient, and he inspired me to be the person that I am today. I would love to hear many people say that.
I think a lot of people are already saying that.
Yeah.
At this point, based off your story. So kudos to you, and what an incredible journey. I mean, you talk about from your upbringings, and you talk about the connectivity issues and the tragedy that you witnessed right in front of you I mean, even your journey throughout the Marines and with the traumatic brain injury, the PTSD, the suicidal tendencies, all of that is part of your journey. And now you're just doing some remarkable things. I don't know how somebody could sit here and listen to this episode for the past hour and not feel inspired and motivated by your story. So
I appreciate
continue doing everything you're doing. It's been a pleasure for me connecting with you on this episode. And folks, we'll see you next week on another episode of the Shadows Podcast.